What's up, it's your boy Hobo Drobo, and today we're going to be talking about the Battle Mecha. This legendary card has been a bit controversial since its release in the beta. Originally, it was way too strong and then they had to nerf it, and now recently it's gotten some more buffs to make it more in line with some of the other towers, but we're going to be talking about today whether or not it's actually worth that value. I'll have the numbers up here from going from level 7 to 8, however I really don't think you need a level 8 Battle Mecha. Level 7 is so close to the point where you may as well just use that base number. And I'll go over all the different kind of spells and towers I like to use for the tower, but I want to prioritize mentioning that I use Polymorph every time I use Battle Mecha, because while it doesn't have a lot of damage compared to other artillery, it really shines with its support skills, and so you need to have something like Polymorph that can reduce the HP of those high tanky troops so that the Battle Mecha can get more value from its base damage. For its first passive ability, Mechanic Might, it allows you to defend your towers from things like tar missiles and other disruption abilities. Very nice. Wasp Missile shoots missiles that can target things anywhere on the map. Very similar to the Dwarven Artillery Missile, really useful. Minefield is another passive ability that shoots mines onto your opponent's side, so this is really good for countering ground heroes or heroes like Allura. A really nice disruption ability that's active as soon as you buy the tower. And then Waste Disposal drops basically an icy zone on the ground, but it's very small and it's not very effective. It's probably the worst skill out of its kit, although it's not too bad to have. For the passive buffs, you're getting 3% decrease in enemies' physical armor, and then 2% increase in allies' armor. Not too bad, but not something I really want to see from a legendary card, honestly. But what makes this tower really unique is that you're able to micro it around the arena, and so I'm able to find a lot of unique spots to put it in that I wasn't able to get artillery in before, and that allows me to have completely different tower setups, putting archer towers where I used to not, putting barbarians where I used to not put them, and so it's definitely very unique in that aspect, and you have to relearn your playstyle every time you get into a new map with this tower. So let's hop into our first match against Aid here, who is actually the person that introduced me to this strategy, so I didn't want to take it from them. I wanted to show you the match that they used to actually counter my extremely offensive deck. If you guys haven't seen my last couple videos, this deck is prioritizing disrupting my opponent, so the Blazing Gem has that Destructo Ray, and then the Musketeers have the Sniper Shots, and then on top of that, the Glacial Druid also has Blizzards and Frost Giants, so it's really annoying for my opponent to deal with anything, but luckily for them, they have the Battle Mecha, and the Battle Mecha does a nice job of keeping those towers not disrupted by anything. And you'll notice they use the Blazing Gem, the Royal Archers, and the Barbarians, all very good choices, and I'll break them down one by one. First, the Blazing Gem is really good at that high single target HP damage. He's going to be able to disrupt me as well with the Destructo Ray, and then having those Eldritch Channelers on my side puts a lot of pressure as well. And you can see because they're being protected by the Battle Mecha, they're getting a lot more value as well because their beam is never resetting. Really good strategy. Although it is also really expensive, so in those early rounds sometimes you have to prioritize just Royal Archers and Barbarians first, and then having Barasat is really helpful because he's going to give you that extra gold boost to be able to afford the legendary towers. And I really like that Aid also uses the Royal Archers here. You can use the Musketeers, and I think that I probably prefer them after having some experience with this deck, but the Royal Archers are really nice for taking out the troops that are polymorphed because they shoot very consistently. They have nice range, and both of their skills are pretty good. The Eagle is actually pretty clutch on some maps for dealing damage to air stragglers, and Armor Piercer is a really nice support skill that combos with the Blazing Gem and the Battle Mecha. So on maps where you're able to kill the boss, the Royal Archers are probably a better bet than the Musketeers. However, when I was playing this deck, I found that there were a lot of maps that I couldn't place down the Blazing Gem, and I ended up just having to place down all my other towers, and so most of my damage was coming from the Battle Mecha or the Royal Archers, and that made it really tough sometimes. So I definitely think having the Musketeers is nice as extra disruption because they have the Sniper Shots, and they still have Shrapnel Shot. So they're able to kill the stuff that's polymorphed, and they're able to get disruption on the other side, mainly to take out Ice Scald bots if I'm playing bots, or anybody with Ice Scald in general. Those bots are really tough because they've learned how to stall the boss, and if I don't have Stun and Icy Zone in the same deck, then I can't stall for longer than them. We basically need to shoot down dragons. Aid here is running Polymorph and Sabotage, and that's really good for maps like this when you're able to take out the boss. Look at how much damage this Blazing Gem is going to get on this boss. It's actually crazy, and it helps because the Battle Mecha is able to keep that gem up the entire time. It doesn't matter that I have Glacial Druid. His deck is so defensive that my disruption and my win condition just doesn't matter at all. So while Aid was able to destroy me in this match, I definitely don't think that this deck is great on every map. Like I said, there's a lot of places where you can't place down Blazing Gem in effective spots, and so it can get pretty rough sometimes, although overall it's a lot of fun to play as well. So if you're willing to take that risk, I definitely would say try it out, if you have the towers, of course. If you don't have Blazing Gem, either use Archmage or Arcane, whichever one you have higher level or whichever one you like using more. Although, no matter what, this Battle Mecha deck will struggle against some bosses. It really depends. If you don't have Icy Zone and Stun, some bosses are just going to walk right through. There's nothing you can do to stop them. Maybe it's just a skill issue on my end and you could try it out, but that was my experience with it at least. And if you didn't catch that on the screen, go back and look at how long that beam was targeted to that boss on Aid's side. It was actually crazy how much damage it got at like the last few inches that it could get in that range, and it gave him just enough time and just enough to where those other towers in that range can take out the boss before I could. And so you can see my plan was just to stall it out. There was nothing I could do because this is mainly a stall deck and I have disruption to make sure my opponent can't kill the boss. But the Battle Mecha is just a defensive support powerhouse and gets him an easy win on this map. This is a great way to show how the Battle Mecha can support your other towers, keeping those Blazing Gems up, doing so much damage to the boss. It really caught me off guard, and even though he got kind of lucky with the Blazing Gem being locked onto that boss for so long in that crazy spot, I do think that it was definitely well played, and I would be very curious to see how they try and do it on other maps. I tried it, and it mainly just ended up being Battle Mecha spam. So it can definitely be tough, and I think this was a really good map to showcase it on. And I didn't mention the Barbarians yet because I wanted to talk about them in this match against Ike, who was at the time the #1 player in the US and still pretty high up there on the leaderboards. Definitely a good player. And this match was really close. I really wish I had won this one because it was against an Archmage player, obviously. But for me, I just didn't place another Blazing Gem down at the very end. I think it would have been enough to get enough damage on the boss. And again, this is what I'm struggling with this deck a lot. It's killing the boss. Because even though the Wasp missiles from the Battle Mecha are really good at getting damage no matter where the boss is on the map, it's just not enough most of the time. You need something like Royal Archers going crazy on those magic resistant bosses, or you need something like the Blazing Gem combined with Sabotage and then slowing it down with Icy Zone, keeping that gem up with something like the Battle Mecha support. And if you can combine all those things, it's really effective. But that's what we're starting to see with these legendary cards. It takes skill and it takes a lot of knowledge of knowing how, when, and where to use them on every map. And that's also why the Merchant of Death Gold Booster is so good, not just for being able to afford all of those legendary towers, but also for being able to sell different towers. I've said a lot in my previous videos, selling towers and buying new ones when you need really will help you determine a lot of these matches. And for example, in this match, I should have sold that middle Battle Mecha and bought a Blazing Gem when the boss got to around this point right here. I could have even sold those Archer Towers and bought a Blazing Gem in hopes of locking it onto that boss or anything in that area, but it just wasn't something I was thinking about in the moment. I was trying to make sure I was countering his Archmage, and so that's where Polymorph comes in really helpful. If you're still struggling against Archmage players, don't send them troops that they can dissipate and use Polymorph. That's about it. But if you're under-leveled against an Archmage player, then good luck. Polymorph should be able to help, but yeah, good luck. And that's why I still prefer my Glacial Druid deck with the Blazing Gem, Musketeers, and Barbarians. And I've been using Stun, Icy Zone, but then also Polymorph instead of Lightning now. Lightning was really good for those initial openings, but Polymorph is just so clutch against high HP troops like Ogres. And even though it's bugged right now, I think it'll still be the meta once it gets fixed. And so the biggest thing with these decks is picking your spells. I think that if you're using Blazing Gem, you need Sabotage if you're going to try and kill those bosses. And then it's up for you to decide, are you going to use Polymorph or are you going to use Icy Zone and Stun? And if you're confident that you can stall out bosses with just Icy Zone or just Stun, then use both Polymorph and Sabotage because the damage you're going to be putting out is absolutely crazy. There's almost nothing you can't deal with in this deck, other than when it comes to bosses, and that's where Icy Zone and Stun comes in really clutch. So I've been flipping back and forth with those, and I've also been flipping back and forth with Archery Scouts, because you can see here, their Archery Scouts are getting so much damage on the boss compared to my Barbarians, because they can shoot from farther away. And I think that that's also what helped Ike a lot here, is that using the Archery Scouts for their extra range just barely got him enough damage to beat me here. And so I'm still not sure which one is better. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And so I've kind of seen 3 decks be rock, paper, scissors. The Archmage players beat the Battle Mecha players, the Battle Mecha players beat the Blazing Gem, Musketeer, and Glacial Druid players, and then the Glacial Druid, Blazing Gem players beat the Archmage players. Sorry if that's a little bit confusing, but I think you get the gist of it. But obviously that's not going to be the deciding factor for a match. Execution, the map you're playing on, and the boosters that are available also make a major impact. And so while I find the Barbarians, Musketeers, and Druid strategy with the Blazing Gem to be the best overall, I do have a lot more fun with the Battle Mecha, so I'm planning on getting some more matches going with the Battle Mecha. I want to show them off against real people on some specific maps, because there's some crazy layouts you can do, and if you're having a hard time getting value, try to find a spot where the Battle Mecha can reach into 2 lanes, because even though it's not doing a lot of damage, it's shooting those things really far, and that's where I get a lot of my value from. And so in that rematch against Ike, the sniper shots and the stalling potential from my spells got me the win. GG man, great matches. And I know this is against a bot, but I wanted to show that example of being able to use the Battle Mecha to reach into other lanes and get a lot more value. And so I normally place an artillery where that Blazing Gem is, but here I can place 3 Battle Mechas, and then they can all reach over to where that choke point is, tripling the damage of what my normal artillery would be if I only had one of them there. And so that's some kind of neat techniques that you can do. If you really like holding choke points, maybe this tower is for you. Try it, see if you like it, if you actually have it, of course, and then let me know what you guys think. I'm having a lot of fun using it, and right now I'm not too sure if it's too strong or too weak. Maybe it could be tweaked a little bit, but I think that overall the balance in this game is pretty fair for where we're at since the last patch. There's nothing that's been making me really annoyed. Other than those weekly and daily chests, we really need those quest chests fixed. I don't know why they're not fixed yet, and that's something that they don't even have to add in the game. They just have to adjust the numbers. So hopefully we see that. Hopefully we see better free-to-play progression in the future so that you guys can be utilizing these awesome cards. But until then, good luck in your next matches, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.